Hello and welcome to episode 236 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On today's show, my good friend and co-host Maz will be joining me as we take a little break from theme park talk to discuss visiting the Big Apple of New York City to check out a Broadway musical. We will be talking a little Disney because we love to have our conversations about Disney on Broadway, and that will come up in this episode. As we get closer to Destination D23 at the end of the month, we will continue to get news stories about the parks. We can't wait to bring you all of our reactions on the podcast when we have the list. There's some really positive things that keep coming up in conversations, like Disney's Hollywood Studios finally doing something productive with Animation Courtyard and Star Wars Launch Bay. I'm looking forward to discussing all of the announcements with you. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. You can make sure not to miss new episodes of the podcast, but there are also some really fun videos that I've been adding to the channel. Keep checking out the page. Let's get started with today's conversation. Thanks for being here, Maz.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So we are going to move right into your wheelhouse this week. We are not going to be talking about theme parks, but we are going to be talking about something in which I consider Maz and, to be fair, my other co-host, Sarah says, to be a pretty big expert. Sarah is definitely an expert on musicals, but today we are going to focus on specifically traveling to New York City to see musicals on Broadway. And we're going to have that particular focus. Maz does it a lot. She is very successful at it, I think. Like, it looks like she gets good tickets and she's able to find deals. So that's something that is really, really important because traveling to New York City is not a cheap venture. So if you're going to do it, you want to make sure that you are getting your money's worth out of everything. And the reason that I had this idea is because the other day I'm just sitting around minding my business and I get a message from Maz and it's just a picture of her and somebody else. And I lost my ever-loving mind when I saw this picture. So you have to tell everybody.
To be fair, I lost my ever-loving mind taking the picture. It was me with David Hyde Pierce, who played Niles on Frasier famously, but he's currently on Broadway in a revival of Pirates, the Penzance musical. It's Pirates! The Penzance musical is the revival's title. And he stage doored after the show. And so I was able to talk with him and get a picture. And he is the nicest person. So generous to everyone. And he went down, the line was probably half a mile long. And he went down the whole line and signed and chatted and took pictures. And, you know, about every third person was like, oh my God, I loved you as Niles. So he definitely hears it a lot. And he was loving it.
So I'm not 100% sure when this is going to air, so he might not currently be doing Pirates, but this was actually such a great time on a side note for me to see that picture because it was right around the same time that George Wendt from Cheers and Loretta Swit from MASH both passed away. And I was starting to feel like, oh, we have these like great shows that we have like grew up watching and are such a part of our personalities. And we're losing the people from them day after day. And to see somebody like David Hyde Pierce, who made his money doing a show like Frasier, and now he just gets to go out and do what he wants. He gets to do musicals when he wants to do musicals. And he gets to pick the roles that he wants, all because he had this really successful run on a great television show. I thought that was really inspiring, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran stage actor and he has earned his space on the stage without a doubt. He's got a Tony. And it's wonderful to see him come back to the stage when he easily could have retired and just been, chilling at home. But gosh, he is so good in, everything he does. But hearing him in this role was just phenomenal.
And I would rather see him in a musical, even if I don't know the story, than see him in that dumpster fire of a Frasier remake.
Oh, tell me about it. He chose right. He made the right call.
All right. So, one of the things that when we have talked in the past about planning your Walt Disney World vacation, and one of the first things that we say is you have to sit down and pick when you're going to do this. For some people, they don't have as much flexibility as other people. It's the kids are in school, or it's my work has this type of obligation for me. But if you are sitting with a blank calendar and you're trying to make that decision, what goes into your choices? Because I'm assuming you want to make sure you can catch multiple shows, that there are the actors and actresses that you want to be in those shows are performing at that particular time. What all goes into picking the times that you are going to make that trip?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of like putting a giant puzzle together because it really does depend on your priorities. If you haven't been to New York in a long time, there's a good chance that there are a ton of shows at any given point that you haven't seen that you could go see. If you travel fairly regularly, there might be a little more of the, puzzle pieces happening where you're going, well, I saw this one when it opened in the spring, so I want to wait until this one opens in the fall. And in that case, I like I like spring and fall trips because in the fall, typically you start getting the very first wave of the new season starting to open. And in the spring, there are a lot of new shows opening because lately the new thing is everyone wants to open as close to the Tonys as possible because they think that recency bias is going to help them. I have my own thoughts on that. But the springtime run up to Tony's is also a great time to see the original cast if that's really important to you. Chances are, when Tony voting is happening, everyone is doing everything they can to get the original cast in the show every single day because they want everyone to be on their A games when those Tony voters are sitting in those seats. So that's, part of it. There's also fundraising that happens twice a year. So if you're into that and you want to hit the fundraising times, sometimes they give away really cool items. It all goes to charity, which is great. So I like sometimes hitting that, and that's fall and spring as well. Um, but the summer can be a great time to go because it's post Tonys. So if you're someone who wants to wait and see, I want to know, I want to watch the performances on the Tonys and see what I'm really interested in. Or I want to know, which musical is going to win Best Musical and I want to go see that one. That's a great way to kind of get a little extra information before you take your trip.
Another reason I would say that spring and fall are good times, just as somebody who has a lot of experience with New York City, but doesn't have a lot of experience going to musicals, is that New York City can be the coldest and the hottest place in the world, depending on the time of year. So if you're going in late July, early August, it can be Walt Disney World hot.
Oh
And if
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going January, February, it can be so cold you will lose your mind. So that is definitely a good timing mechanism. When you talk about these Broadway shows and wanting to see the original cast or wanting to see the hype for the Tonys and all of those things, where does one go to read about these shows, to find out about new shows, to, maybe find out like, oh, David Hyde Pierce is in this Pirates musical. Like, how do you even find out about those things?
Yeah, so Playbill is a great resource. They'll have a list of the running shows. One of my favorite things that Playbill does, they'll put up a weekly schedule of all the shows and their times. And it's just this little grid, and it's so helpful. So you can go through and see, okay, Wicked is playing these dates this week and it's closed on Monday and it plays at 7 on Tuesday. It's a really helpful way to kind of get like a week at a glance. But another site that's really helpful is Broadway.com. And that's a great way to just kind of see everything that's playing. But the caveat to that, if you are going to Broadway.com to look at what's playing, see what's coming up, cast info, things like that, never buy tickets from them because they will be inflated. Always, always, always buy tickets direct from the official website. So, every show will have its own official website, that you can go to and learn more about the cast, understudies, things like that. And if you're looking to buy tickets direct, that's where to go. They'll have their own little link on the site. I feel like it is a very common mistake to make that people go to Broadway.com. And because of the name, everyone's like, oh, well, this is obviously the place to buy the tickets. But it will be marked up a lot.
And here's a chance to get off on a tangent that really has nothing to do with Broadway, but this has to do with everything. If you are buying tickets to see the Pope's favorite Chicago White Sox, buy
Mm-hmm.
them from the White Sox website. If you are going to see the Dodgers, buy them from the Dodgers website. Always make sure you are buying from the website. I know sometimes it's a little harder with concerts, but at least make sure you're sticking to Ticketmaster and some of those places. You might pay a little more, but the tickets will always be there. And you just want to make sure that you are doing it right because, boy, do I see so many people who think they have tickets to venues and to events,
Mm-hmm.
and they end up getting something that is not good. So, what is a way that you find to make a trip to New York for these shows affordable? Because I will see sometimes you'll go see a lot of different shows. Are there times that it's cheaper to go? Are there places that you can sit that, okay, maybe I've seen this show a couple times, so I don't need the best seats for it? Or maybe this isn't my priority on this trip, but I was able to fit it in. So maybe I can do something a little more affordable. Are there places that you go to save money on specific shows?
Yes, there is. Truly, there is a lot. And honestly, just to go back to the seasons really quick, winter is a great time to find cheap tickets because, like you said, lots of people don't want to be vacationing in New York City in the winter. So I was able to go last February and I was able to get tickets so cheap because so many shows were running promotions because there was just, no one was there. People weren't filling the theaters. So on that note, Broadway itself, the organization, usually does twice a year. They do like Broadway week. And so you can get 2-for-1 tickets, which is a huge plus. And obviously, they go fast, availability is limited. You might not always get the right seat or, the ideal seat, but you can get 2 tickets for the price of one, which is a huge, huge bonus if you're looking to save some money and if you're traveling with someone. Now, if you're traveling alone, obviously you can't use that deal. There are plenty of other ways to save money. I myself, I am one of those I'm just happy to be in the building people. And a lot of theaters have really great sight lines. So even if you're pretty far back and maybe you can't see facial expressions, but you can get the full experience of the show. And so I'm definitely, a habitual rear mezzanine, upper balcony. Like, I don't care. I'll take the discount to sit a few rows further back. And honestly, for most shows, it hasn't been an issue. You can always check a view from my seat. Super, super helpful when you're looking at where you're sitting. Lots of people are super helpful and upload those pictures. You can get kind of an idea. And also, if you're short like me, a lot of times avoiding the orchestra can be really beneficial because it doesn't have as much of a rake.
Okay, see, that's another good point because there are a lot of times that I've found in different types of events that what people perceive as being the best ticket isn't always the best ticket. Are there places for a musical that you prefer to sit that maybe not every musicals fan likes that seat? Like maybe they like being really close, but you like being back a little bit further to see some of the choreography or to see some of the things unfold. I worked for a number of years selling tickets for an NFL team, and people would always try to get 50-yard line first row. And I'm like, you're just seeing backs and shoulders at that point. You are just seeing the players who are standing on the sidelines because the seats aren't elevated that much. You're just seeing the backs of their helmets. But if you go up about half away, then you can see more of the things develop and you're paying less money. So, are there things that you like out of a seat for a Broadway musical that maybe other people don't like, and vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, I think every kind of zone has its fans. So I definitely don't think I'm alone in any of my opinions. And I think that my favorite seat is quite popular. I do tend to think that in most houses, the best seat is front row mez. And, usually it's priced accordingly. So that is not going to be a cheap seat, but I love sitting front row mez if it's a splurge show because you get to see everything happening on stage. Like you said, you get to really get a good view of the choreography. And again, for me being short, no one's head's in front of you, which is great. Now, some theaters, you do have to do a little research because some theaters will have a bar on top of that, like railing for the mezzanine. So then it is better to sit a couple rows back because the bar can block some view of the stage if you're too close to it. But I mean, like I said, I'm a really big proponent of rear mez. I haven't had very many issues with it. I think that a lot of people do think that the closer you can be, the better your experience will be. And I have had some cool experiences sitting very close, but I think they wouldn't have been as cool if it had been my first experience seeing the show. Like, I got really, really lucky. My friend and I think it was our very first trip to New York. It was such a beginner's luck type of magic. And we ended up getting day of super cheap, like ridiculously cheap front row seats for Wicked. Obviously, this was before the movie came out. Those tickets now are like quadruple what we paid for them. It's crazy. And we were able to get them really cheap because it was day of. They just wanted to get rid of them and fill the house. And it was really cool being able to see everything up close and seeing details in the costumes, but you don't get the full effect of the choreography. Some moments you're looking at a kind of weird angle where you don't really get to see the full impact of certain things. So I like sitting a little further back because I think you get to soak it all in a little bit more.
Not going to many musicals, but having gone to concerts in musicals venues, I used to be like you, where the back of the mezzanine, I'm like, I'm fine being here. I can see everything. I have a great view. Maybe I can breathe a little bit because I'm back and I'm not like just in crunched in with everybody else. But the last time I saw a major musician in a theater environment. I got the back of the mezzanine, and everything behind me I just felt was so loud. I don't know if it's always been that way, but if the bar is behind you and people are going to the bar and you have the ushers who are just like having their conversations because they don't care about the artist, or I would imagine in musicals they've seen them so many times that it really did kind of turn me off on that seat that I had really loved for a long time. It was always the cheapest, but it usually meant you could still get an aisle seat and you could still sort of be separated from people, which, anything in the COVID world, I'm happy to have a place where I can just sort of turn and not have my face among other faces. So that is a lot to think about, but I do think that you had some really good advice there as well. Now I want
Yeah.
to get into the shows themselves, because if somebody is trying to do this for the first time and maybe they're not the expert on musicals that you are or Sarah is, and they don't know every person who, they might look at the cast of a show and it might not mean anything to them, and you're like, no, you don't understand, this is like the best cast. And what would you say are some good first time musicals? Something that you would say if somebody is trying to get into the Broadway experience and they are trying to sort of learn from this, would you say like a Disney on Broadway would be a good way to start, because you're going to know a lot of the songs, you're going to be familiar with the stories, and you can take something familiar and then learn a new delivery method for those stories? Or would you say just like jump off the deep end and go see something that is a more traditional musical and something that is going to show you what you can experience that's completely different than anything else you've already experienced?
It's so tough because it depends so much on the person and what their personal tastes are. I think if you're a Disney fan and that's kind of the level of familiarity you have with musicals, I think starting there is a great point. I think The Lion King is a fantastic first time musical if you're a Disney fan and you already like that story. It has some incredible puppeteering that I think introduces you to a different art form without really introducing you to a whole new story on top of it. And I think that's a very cool experience. Aladdin has some pretty amazing prop work. You know, if you've seen the movie, this is not a spoiler, but seeing the magic carpet fly in real time on a Broadway stage is a pretty incredible thing. Outside of that, I mean, I think Wicked is a great first time musical, kind of has it all. It's a little less of a, if you don't want to do Disney for your first musical, Wicked's a great entry point. But I feel like, honestly, the best way to do it is to read up on what's on Broadway at the moment because there are so many incredible shows that there is something for everyone, and something that you might not think will be for you could end up kind of grabbing you by the summary, and going to see it could end up really resonating with you. And those are some of the most fun experiences to have, is to go into a show and be like, well, yeah, this seems like it could be a fun time. And then you walk out of it and you're like, oh my God, that was incredible. So, there are a lot of adaptations on Broadway right now. So there are a lot of things that you can go, oh, well, I've seen this movie or I've read this book and I enjoyed that. And that might be a good entry place to go, oh, well, yeah, maybe I'll go see the musical then.
So I'm a big fan of some musical artists. Two of them in particular are Alanis Morissette and Billy Joel, and both of them have had musicals in recent years where they have taken their original music and turned it into a Broadway story. And it's not just Alanis Morissette, it's not just Billy Joel. I mean, Green Day has done this. A lot of different artists have done it. So, what are your thoughts on sort of these pop artist musicals? I'm not asking particularly about Jagged Little Pill or Moving Out. Like, you don't have to put down artists I like. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just saying, like, what are your thoughts on that particular style of musical?
Yeah, the jukebox, when done well, I think is very good. And again, I think it is a very important style of musical to have because I think it makes shows more accessible to have someone go, well, sure, I'll take a chance and go see this musical because I already know I'm going to like the music. And so I think that's very important. I think a lot of times they get, a kind of a bad reputation around Broadway for being like not real musicals. I look, maybe I've just got a low bar, I'm easily entertained, but I love them when, just like anything else, if it's done well and there's care put into it, there's a good chance I'm going to enjoy it. And so I think that they definitely have a very important place in the theater world.
And then, what do you think about touring productions, local productions? Do you think that's a good way for people to get into Broadway musicals before spending the $400, $500 a night for a hotel in downtown Manhattan?
Yes, definitely go see, touring shows. Go find a local, playhouse and go see their productions. You will be amazed by the local talent that will come in for these shows. And, the touring shows are crazy. Always, I say for tours, check to make sure they're equity, just because non-equity shows don't have to treat the performers to a certain standard. So I prefer support equity shows on like national tours, things like that, just because, they're actually letting their performers sleep. But yeah, go check it out. A lot of local theaters will have discount programs. I know like Broadway in Chicago does $25 tickets on the 25th that you can like log in and sign up to get those cheap seats. So that's a great way to check it out. And if you are going to Broadway, discounts that I forgot about, check TDF has a ticket program. And if you are under 30 or qualify for other measures, you can get cheap tickets to a lot of shows. Some shows have access tickets for under 40. So there are a lot of ways to get cheaper seats to shows that might not be widely advertised, but there are options. And I know on the websites, it looks like there is very little accessibility, and it is a problem in Broadway theaters. That's a whole other episode. I won't get into it, but always call the theater directly, not the box office, the actual theater, and they often will be able to work with you in terms of making sure that you have the best experience that they can give you.
I want to say that goes for professional sports teams as well. There are a lot of times that they hold their accessible tickets and accessible seats because they don't want scalpers going on there and finding some trick to getting them. They want to make sure that people who actually need them get them. So that is something that I would say goes for everything you are trying to
Mm-hmm.
see. If you have accessibility issues, call the venue. One last question, and I know you're also a hockey fan, and I felt there was a time in my life where I kind of tried to get into hockey a little more, and I felt like there was a lot of gatekeeping in the hockey community, that they didn't quite want to explain the stuff to you. And what is it like in Broadway? If you are just trying to go catch some shows and start to see if this is an interest that you might have, do you find that it is a real gatekeeping community, and that when you first start showing up, there are people who, have those, oh, you're here to see Lion King. Oh, you're so, like, is it one of those kind of things?
I mean, I think in every fandom, you're going to find the pretentious people who are like, oh, well, you didn't go see the very first Sondheim production that ever made. You're not a theater fan. And, that's simply not the majority of people. Don't let that scare you away. You absolutely, inevitably will encounter someone like that because everyone does. And every show has like super fans that'll be weird about it. But if you if you enjoy a musical, you're a fan. I don't care if you've only ever listened to it, you're a fan. And so don't let that fear of people stop you from getting into it because you will end up finding really good people who are excited to share it with you and are excited to be like, oh my gosh, you didn't know this musical existed? Let me tell you about it. You're going to love it from a pure like enthusiasm standpoint and not a weird gatekeepy format. So yeah, they're out there. They're definitely around, but they are not the majority. The majority of fans are welcoming and very excited to have more people to honestly just talk nonstop about it with.
And I think that's very apropos for a podcast that started off as a Disney podcast, like the guy who understands the Muppets at a much deeper level than you. So anyway, Maz, this was such a great introduction into Broadway as a travel phenomenon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me and letting me talk about it.
This has been episode 236 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We will be back next Thursday when Mouse and More Adam joins us to talk about his experiences with the last day of operation for Muppet Vision 3D at Disney's Hollywood Studios. That will be next week on Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Until then, have a great week.